And once again, this is Professor Sistrunk, and I am back for our first Linux lesson. Now, with this particular lesson, I am actually going to cover Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. And yes, I have my handy-dandy syllabus right here to make sure I stay focused. And also, you're going to see me looking around because I also have notes that I'm following. So if my eyes seem like they're wandering, I'm making sure I cover the right stuff. Okay, with that being said, so what did you receive from me today, and why all of a sudden you receiving a lot of stuff from me today? Well, two reasons. The first one is this: is students are consistently signing up for the class. In my previous video, I said, well, we have 12 students. Now I just found out we have 14 students. So students are continually jumping in the class, and I want to make sure that when I send my videos out, everyone receives them. Remember, these are going to be lecture videos, so I want to make sure everyone receives the lecture videos. The second reason that I'm sending you stuff now is to make sure that I be concise and on point. So what's going to happen is every Wednesday or Thursday, I'm going to put together stuff. I'm going to be working on stuff all through the week because I got a lot of other stuff I'm doing. And every Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to make sure that I focus that time on the Linux students and give you your dedicated time. The goal here is that I'm going to create videos, pretty much lecturing, but for the most part, demonstrating the skill set in Linux. My next video, you're going to start seeing me deploy Linux from many different forms. I'm going to deploy Linux from the cloud. I'm going to actually put on my computer what they call a virtual box and then put a live Linux session in there just to let you know that it's multiple ways you can use Linux. But I'm gonna do what you're doing. I'm gonna show you the commands. I'm gonna explain the commands to you, and I'm gonna create a format to where all you have to do is follow this format. Remember, you got a lot of exams to do, you have quite a few labs to do, and you got a midterm and a final. And then you got an overall final. This is to see, do you remember all of this stuff? So I'm going to create a format to all you have to do is follow that particular format, and you will make sure that you really getting the Linux skills down. So when you come in to this, watching my videos, I want to make sure that you really can get a real thorough understanding of not how to type in the commands and do the commands. Anybody can do that. But a way to remember these commands. So I'm going to give you tricks and tips on how to remember these commands. Now, Linux is a robust program. It's out there. It's on servers. It's on desktop computers. All of the Android phones has a Linux operating system on there. That's how wide the Linux application is being utilized. And I hear this all the time from people talking about, oh, Linux is hard, Linux is confusing. No, it's not. It is not. And I know I said that backwards, but hey, Linux is a simple application. It just takes you to discipline yourself to try to learn the application. I watch so many students attempt to learn these applications, but they just shoot through them. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to really buckle down and learn the application because we have a midterm coming up, and we're going to have a final coming up, and then we got an overall class session coming up. And the sweet part about this class is when you complete this class, like all the other classes, you will get a certification of completion. And with that certification, you'll also get a discount on being able to go take the actual certification. Yeah, we're looking out for you. We're making sure that you will be able to go out there and have an affordable price to be able to go and take your exam. Now, you're going to learn a little bit more about Linux, but I just want to go through these first two chapters. They're really simple, they're really easy, and then I want to show you a demonstration of actually using Linux and how you should proceed through it. So in this introduction to Linux, you're going to learn about the kernel. You're going to learn about how powerful the kernel is for Linux systems. But do you know every networking operating system has a kernel? But you're in the Windows world, you don't get an opportunity to use it because everything is GUI in a Windows world and you have to follow the GUI pattern. But in the Linux world, you actually talk to the kernel and the kernel talk through the many different devices on your computer. So as it says, Linux is the kernel of the system. That's exactly what it means. You're talking to the kernel. The kernel and the suite of tools that are packaged with it is called a distribution. Now, a lot of people get fearful of Linux because they don't actually know what Linux is. But when you get in the Linux world, you're going to be like, oh, this is nothing. This is easy. And yes, just like with Microsoft Windows and Microsoft Server, there are different stages. And you want to start at this stage because this is the basic stage that takes you into the administration of Linux. Okay, so what is a distribution? Now, you're going to hear me from time to time slip up and say version. But Linux is really not a version. A version is another level of the same operating system. Linux is the same operating system, but many people around the world are adding their pieces to it. So it's developers all around the world that are adding pieces to it. So take a look at this. Wow. These are just some of the versions of Linux out there. And if you take a look at this screen, you'll be like, wow. And that's because it's open source. No one owns Linux, but you have to follow the proper procedure to actually add to the Linux platform. And you can see all type of versions out there. Ubuntu, you see Red Hat. It's so many versions of Linux out there. Now, all of these versions have specialized purposes. Some are for network systems, some are for desktop systems. Some you can use interchain. Some run massive web servers that's on the internet. These particular versions or distributions, see, I just slipped up and said it again. These particular distributions are dedicated distributions for whatever a programmer or a system administrator or a network administrator may need that version for. When you hear Red Hat, what a lot of people don't understand about Red Hat is considered the industry Linux, meaning that companies want to use Red Hat. But Red Hat is no different than Ubuntu. Red Hat just charged to use Linux. Companies don't have to really pay to use Linux. They can actually create the Linux platform on their computer and go from there. But Red Hat created a business model. Listen to that. A business model behind Linux. And now they're selling it. And what they're doing is they sell you their version of Linux, but they back it up with a lot of support. And that's what companies are buying. I got my coffee in here, so I got to take a drink. So excuse me. And no, even though the cup of red is not alcohol. Coffee, people. Okay, moving right along. So you're going to learn how powerful the kernel is. And remember, you are putting commands in that are talking to the kernel, which is telling the devices what to do, how to allocate memory, how using the processor. These are the main three things that make up a computer. The processor, I told you about that before, the memory, and the hard drive. And that's what the kernel do. The kernel pull up applications that you need or want to use because you are instructing it and giving it commands to do that. You're going to learn about the shell. The shell provides for interaction between the computer and the users and the computer. That's you doing the commands. that's you typing the commands in, Filesystem provides a way to organize and manage all of computer disks. Remember, if you was back in the old DOS days, we put in commands, but it was based on a file system, a file structure. And that file structure is the same way in Linux. Remember, Linux comes from, or was created based on, from Unix. So that's a total file system structure. Moving right along. You have applications make requests to the kernel and receive resources. So once you instruct applications to do things, they will go to the kernel and the kernel will access the allotted time for that particular application. Moving right along, you can read about that. So, like I said, there are many different distributions out there. Recover a distribution refers to the Linux kernel, tools, and suite. So I'm not going to hype too much on distributions, but I'm going to show you in a minute the main distributions out there that you will be using. And here we go. So these are the main distributions that are out there. And remember, Red Hat 1, CentOS, Ubuntu. We're going to teach you, and when I say we, I'm really talking about me, like I got a crew of people behind me. I'm going to teach you how to use Ubuntu and CentOS. I wanted to give you a really robust Linux knowledge. I wanted you to really get into Linux, but I wanted to do it from two different platforms. Now, a lot of people, when I first learned Linux, I learned Fedora, okay, but this was years ago. Yes, I'm an old man, but that's when I learned. But you have many versions, and you can see right here all these different versions of Linux. And I wanted you as a student to have two different versions, Ubuntu and CentOS. And we're going to start off with Ubuntu. Get your hands muddy and dirty in Ubuntu. And then we're going to go into CentOS so you can do some real strong scripting. And yes, you're going to learn how to write your first script. Did I say that right? Script. I got it right. You're going to learn how to write your first one. And that will give you the confidence to know when you go into any other command line programming, it will not be hard. Most of you should have it easy because you were working on command line when you was working in the Cisco classes. So this should be pretty easy for you. Moving right along. Okay, I'm not going to read through all these slides because you pretty much know it. I just want to really talk about the things in here. So you see that the Linux platform was basically started on computers, but the primary reason Linux took off really big is because of the cell phones. Now, Linux has always been out there, but it's never really been, one of them applications that a lot of people took to. And it built, and when it was quiet, it built a real strong background with the web servers and the big server machines and stuff like that. But then when it hit the cell phones, that's when everybody began to say, hey, you can take this open source operating system called Linux and develop your applications. And that's when it blew up, okay? So Linux been around for a while, but for it to blow up the way it is, it's been a baby in the field. But everybody's jumping on it now, and you in the right place. Okay, so you're going to learn that we already talked about it. You have the GUI platform and you have the command line platform. Now, you heard me give reference to what I call the car scenario. When you drive in a car, most people drive an automatic. That's considered the Windows world. You point, you click, things happen. In the background, commands are being executed. It's just that you're not executing it. You clicking on something that is actually executing the commands. But in the Linux world, now you take control of the car. It's an automatic. It's a stick. You controlling the gas, the speed, and everything. You shifting, you moving the car. That's what Linux is. You dive into the operating system and you take control of it. And let me tell you something, a secret. Once you learn Linux, you really understand operating systems, whether they're network operating systems or just regular desktop operating systems. You really get a real good view. And that's why I want to teach you Ubuntu and CentOS so you can really see how you can use it. Can you imagine writing a script that would automatically bring up 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 computers? One little script? That's automation on a higher level, okay? And we call it auto-scaling. Moving right along. So this is actually a command right here. Now you see how to type in the command. And earlier, we used this particular command earlier in my last video. Now, remember, the shell that you will be using is called Born Again Shell. This is, and when I say new, what I mean, it's new to you, it's new coming out, but it's the newest version of the shell that's out there. And most people use this shell when they actually working in Linux. But just know that it's the Born Again Shell, or and for short, Bash. Just remember that. But let's go home. Let's move on. So you're gonna build in shell commands. You're gonna actually type in shell commands, and their shell commands are already built in there. That's how the whole thing works. You're gonna take commands that you're gonna learn, and you're gonna type it into Linux. You got the binary commands stored in files. You got functions and scripts that you're going to produce. Moving right along. Okay, here are a few commands right here. So here's basic Linux commands. You got the ls, cd, and shutdown and pws. Well, you want to list files on your systems or list the system files. You want to change the directory. You want to shut down the computer, and you want to print text to your screen, PWD, okay? And you're going to learn how to use them commands. Here's our file structure. Now remember, in the Linux world, you're going to hear people talking about the root directory, You hear that when you was working in the DOS world, if you were in the DOS world, but you're going to hear about the root directory. And remember, the Linux world is a hierarchy just like the DOS world was. It's a hierarchy file system. That means you have a root directory, and off of the root directory, you can create your own files. Now, there's system files you won't create or you won't have control over create, but you can actually modify them. When you get really, really good in Linux, you may make a lot of changes to an operating system. Trust and believe that. I'm kind of scared because you might learn some things. Okay, moving right along. Okay, so now remember earlier in the previous video, I told you that we was going to be learning some things like command, options, and arguments. I'm going to actually structure that out in a video so you can consistently build on the commands. You're going to have a definition, you're going to have the syntax, then you're going to actually have a command, and you're going to put an example of how to use that command, and that's how you're going to remember your Linux platform. So the rest of this is just a bunch of directories that's showing you how to use various things, and I'm actually going to do that inside of the actual application. So you get a lectured video, and then you get a demonstration video, and you enjoy it. But I'm going to bring in some of my own files and demonstrate how to do it. And one of the first ones is going to be actually how to set up a Linux application. You're going to love this stuff. You're going to be sitting back, oh, Professor, I got it. Okay, moving right along. You're going to learn about the man command, and that's an important command because every operating system or every application have what they call a help directory. In Linux, we call it the man command, and you're going to get a chance to see me go in there when I need help with things, how to find how to do things, okay? And that's what the man command. So when you think of the man command, just think of the help directory. Okay, moving right along. Okay, and this shows you a picture of how it looks in the man command, or when you type in the command. So it shows you the name, ls, list directory contents. Then it gives you the syntax. This is exactly how you're going to put your stuff together when you're trying to learn this. You're going to give it a name. You're going to get the name. Then you're going to create the syntax of it. And then you're going to put a definition and stuff in there so you can remember what it actually means. And you can also put an example in there of how you used it so you can remember it. Remember that. A couple of more commands are here. I'm just putting these up here so you can see them. Just a couple of more commands on how things can be done using various variables and stuff. But I'm going to explain that in the next video as we travel through it. The history command, when you type in history, it shows you all the commands that you previously used. And we're going to make sure that you use the history command because you don't want to keep typing stuff over and over. Starting off, we want you to type it in. But you don't want to really keep typing it over and over again. Okay. And that's it. So this was a brief, short video on Linux. This covers the introduction, the using the shell, and also configuring the shell. Now, my next video, I'm actually going to do the work in here, and I'm going to show you how to actually utilize the Linux world, and you're going to enjoy that. So, until my next video, this is Professor Systrom. If you get a chance, and this is really helping you as I proceed to move on, even this video here, give me a thumbs up and like, because I'm using this platform called YouTube, and I want to make sure that students are able to consistently go back and review the material. You're going to learn a lot. Like this video for me if you get a chance. And this is Professor Systrom signing off again.